On a quiet Georgia shoreline in May 1803, something happened that terrified slave traders more than any rebellion with guns. There were no cannons, no armies, only chains, salt air, and a group of captured Africans who chose death over bondage. What unfolded at Igbo Landing was not just an escape attempt. It was a spiritual and political act that still echoes across the Atlantic world. Before we dive into the main story, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell notification button for more interesting video like this. In May 1803, a ship called the Wanderer, some accounts identify it as a smaller coastal vessel transporting enslaved Africans, arrived near St. Simon's Island, Georgia, carrying a group of Igbo people from what is today southeastern Nigeria. They had survived the Middle Passage, weeks of horror, disease, and confinement, only to face a lifetime of enslavement on American plantations. While being transferred from the ship to shore in a small boat at Dunbar Creek, the captives seized a rare moment of vulnerability. They overpowered their captors, forcing the white traders into the water. But instead of fleeing into the unfamiliar land or hiding in the swamps, the Igbo captives made a decision that shocked witnesses and haunted slaveholders for generations. Led by an elder, remembered in oral tradition as a spiritual guide rather than a military commander, the Igbo walked into the creek together. Some accounts say they sang, others say they spoke words in their language that were later interpreted as a declaration of return. "The water brought us, the water will take us home." One widely preserved line claims they said, "We are going back to the place we came from." They drowned themselves, men, women, and children, choosing the ancestral world over enslavement. To understand Igbo Landing, it is crucial to understand Igbo cosmology. In traditional Igbo belief, death is not an end but a transition. The soul returns to the ancestral realm, and life is part of a continuous cycle. Enslavement, by contrast, represented a permanent spiritual death, the loss of lineage, identity, and connection to one's ancestors. This was not despair, it was resistance. Unlike revolts that sought freedom through violence or escape, the Igbo Landing represented absolute refusal. By denying slaveholders ownership over their bodies and futures, the Igbo captives struck at the very foundation of slavery, the idea that human beings could be property. The story of Igbo Landing spread quickly among enslaved Africans and terrified plantation owners. It reinforced a stereotype among slave traders that Igbo people were unruly or dangerous, not because they fought more but because they refused to be broken. In response, some traders avoided purchasing Igbo captives altogether. Among African Americans, especially in the Georgia Lowcountry and Gullah Geechee communities, Igbo Landing became sacred ground. Folklore tells of spirits walking on water, of voices still heard near the creek, of Africans who flew back home. These were not myths of fantasy, they were metaphors of freedom, memory, and spiritual victory. Writers like Zora Neale Hurston and Toni Morrison later echoed this event in literature, transforming Igbo Landing into a symbol of Black resistance across the diaspora. But here is the unsettling question history leaves behind. If the Igbo captives could imagine freedom so completely that they chose death over chains, how many other stories of resistance were never written down, erased beneath the tides of the Atlantic? And what would the world look like today if those voices had been allowed to live, speak, and lead? The water at Igbo Landing is calm now, but history suggests it is still remembering. Want more stories like this? Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our story, because this is just getting started.